Well, hello everyone. Here to show you that the firewall studies. You see coloring activity right here. As you see that I went ahead and included right here is they say a picture diagram right here of a bug, and a lot of ways it looks like which calls like maybe like a deer tick, or maybe the what you calls like the in typical the typical animal type of insect it is, but right here is that if most of us are familiar with like what you call is like for for any type of internet security, it is known about with is like for the control panel right here, and then knowing about ideas about for what per disabled the disabled programs it is, and of course if something were enabled it is, and a lot of ways that we could probably think about that whenever we if we were to have the computer it is have a computer, there are a lot of ways that knowing about that whenever you buy a computer it is, and just knowing about a lot of people are thinking about that really kind of like we say is if you were to buy a calculator, is knowing about the people probably thinking about if you're willing to spend the extra time on it, of course knowing about how it works, and knowing about the connection it is. But then right here is that you have right here an example right here is I went ahead and used right here is like a deer looking type insect right here, and basically is working with the green right here. But you have right here is that go ahead and add a little bit of green detail right here. It's like for the insect it is, and I'm sure quite a few of us probably thinking about that knowing about when you don't know what it's like a type of insects or whatever. But I'm just thinking about it, it's like knowing about that. I'm just using this as a kind of example. It's like knowing about that this was like a kind of say it's got right here is it's the legs you say up the creature is talking about like a bug kind of like this, to where that a bug that say that bites, and then of course that they kind of have like little teeth, I guess. More likely, people probably thinking about describe it. Is it described as like what you call like a dog bite? If you were to get bitten by a dog, or maybe a cat or something like that, or a mosquito, and just knowing about the type of bites, of course, that more likely that perform is knowing about the type of insect, but just knowing about the type of viruses that more likely you get. Knowing about, besides like maybe the flu bug or anything like that, but just knowing about if you were to get connected to the internet, a lot of times that if you were to get connected to the internet, maybe be downloading a file, downloading a program it is, and a lot of times that they have like what you call like the e-stores it is, to where you can buy stuff on online to the electronic store it is, I guess electronic Netscape or Netscope or something like that. But right here is like got right here is an example right here of like say is like a beetle type bug right here, and knowing about that with the type of bug is that if it hops or if it just crawls. But we could probably all think about that with the type of security that more likely be aware of it, knowing about with our internet connections it is, and from the past couple of years or so since the internet has enhanced, is knowing about, since they have all this other stuff related to getting connected to the wireless, and of course with the internet it is, and just knowing about that it's like that if it applies to most computers, that knowing about whenever you if you were to get connected is knowing about that you get connected, and knowing about that you have right here is that you got right here is for planet Earth. But a lot of times I usually see that, by the way, I usually see that to where if you were to get connected to the internet, or maybe be downloading a file, it would show a lot of times that computers would show like a file icon like this right here. Show it. It's like being downloaded, from say from another system. It's like somewhere on the planet. Somewhere on the planet you'll be downloaded. It's like installed to your computer. It was, and knowing about that, they probably think about that it don't really have any control over the fact about any type of viruses, and knowing about that that if you were to, let's just say if an update were to occur on your computer, it is, and knowing about that, they say that the firewall needs to be turned off in order to be able to perform this this update or this installation. It is, in a lot of ways that we could probably think about that. That's like that, yeah, any type of shield it is, but we could probably think about that. Is it just like getting sick, breathing air, outside? It's like breathing the outside air, and the next thing you know, you got to worry about it's like maybe a fly or a beetle. It's like being flying around. You may accidentally swallow it or whatever you caught, and knowing about may get a little bit sick. It's like maybe a little bit of nausea from that, and just knowing about that. The types of viruses that more likely that you can get that's like on the computer. But in a lot of ways that we could probably think about that whenever you buy computer software, it is, and just knowing about whenever you purchase it, that now like talking about it's like the price is there, and they say that you pay the price it is for how much it costs, including taxes. It is. And just knowing about that yeah, for whatever amount of equal time it takes just to get it going. A lot of times people probably thinking about, yeah, well, I wasn't told that it was going to take 12 hours just to get it ready. I was not told that I needed a security code. I was not told that I need more computer software just to get to work. And more likely they probably think about, yeah, well, whenever you buy stuff, I guess that's just a thing that. Well, whenever you buy stuff, a lot of times I notice that too. Besides what you call like no antivirus protection, be aware of antivirus file or anything like that, and just knowing about that is like for the software requirements it is, and a lot of times it's like maybe a DirectX or anything like that could be required, and it's like I think see here service I think service pack I can. See here, service pack. I'll go ahead and just use like service pack as example right here. Service pack. So like a lot of the video software, a lot of times either the flash player or the service pack, a lot of times would require like a program like that. But on the other hand, too, that knowing about with some computer products to say that what is required, a computer. In a lot of ways that I keep thinking about that it would be nice if maybe all programs would just say that a computer, other than the fact about knowing about that, yeah, other than checking just to see if you had all the requirements it was, because a lot of times people are thinking, well, I really don't know how to do that. Like knowing about that, yep, between firewall studies is knowing about that that if you were to buy a game or anything like that, software product or anything, that more likely that they could be used and done on the computer. And a lot of times that we could probably think about, you buy it, and then the next thing you know it, that you spend so much time, of course you spend so much time trying to figure out exactly about how it works. And I would probably say that with most of us here have probably had our experience with buying stuff, and then the next thing you know it, you don't want to spend any more than maybe 5 or 10 or 12 hours on it. And really, that whenever you buy something, and whenever you buy something such as maybe a cool looking pencil or anything like that, and just knowing about that yeah, that really, how long from the road are you going to be able to get? Maybe if you just only spend a couple of hours on it. If we ever thinking about that, anything that we buy from the store, it is. I'm like, we're not talking about borrowing. We're talking about buying, to where that whenever you buy it, especially maybe a company that may have gone out of business, it was, and just knowing about that, whenever you buy something, that a lot of times you're probably like, well, I'll just go ahead and take it back and try to get my money back, something like that for it. But until they say, well, that may not work. But I got right here is a insect, and like right here, it's like if it were to bite, it's like most of us maybe know what an insect bite looks like. But anyway, got a bug that may bite, or it's like that have it to where that yeah. A lot of people that may say that, yeah, well, before it bites me, I'll be sure to squash it first. But if the bug were to have teeth like this right here, thinking about, yeah, well, I'll be sure to squash it first, before it touches me or anything. But anyway, that you have right there is you got your teeth, about right here it is. And just knowing about that, yeah, you got right there is the mouth, let's say the insect it is, and the next thing you know, it's like yeah. That whenever you get connected to the internet, that a lot of times you're probably thinking about with any type of virus or anything like that you got more likely be really concerned about. And you can say that they probably say, yep, you can buy it. It is expensive at times, but in a lot of ways they're probably thinking about, well, you can't get it to work. Well, guess what? That's something that you got to figure out. You got to figure out what the problem is. But other than that, on the other hand, too, that knowing about it, I'm sure that there are some computer supporter, computer expert that probably tell you more likely what the problem is, and more likely they probably think about that yeah, something that could be for free, it's just going to take a little bit more of your time, but a lot of ways they could probably think about that they could maybe suggest, anybody would probably suggest that don't buy something that you're not going to want to spend a whole lot of time with, because that you're not going to use, that you're not going to spend a whole lot of time with, because more likely that you're talking about is that whenever you buy something, then more likely it's possible that it may take quite a bit of your time. And knowing about that, if you're going to be buying maybe a pair of shoes or maybe a pair of socks, and then the next thing you know, it's like knowing about, okay, well, the laces work totally different from what I'm used to working with. With the laces, the laces don't work, like normal. If anybody has maybe seen a pair of shoes, it's like go ahead and draw a pair of shoes. It's like, for an example, if anybody has ever seen a pair of shoes that they have like what you call like the tie straps like this right here, but instead of tying them, that they have it to where they stretch. They stretch like this, and then you just gotta wait, for the stretch band to go adjust to like what you call like for 42 at level T or something like that. 42 level T, to where they have like what say adjust bands instead of tying them and stuff, that they have it to where you stretch them. You kind of like say more like a rubber band. Where you stretch them. In a lot of ways, it's like, hey, buy a pair of shoes, and hey, how do you, I don't know how to tie this, I don't know how to tie my shoelaces. It's like, well, they're not called laces, they're called, adjustable fit bands or something like that. But on the other hand, too, to knowing about, if you were to buy something new at the store, it is, so far as a pair of shoes it is knowing about that, yeah, anybody would probably think about, a pair of shoes, really. A pair of shoes. I don't expect to go to the store and then after you buy a pair of shoes and then next thing you know, then I found out that, I don't even know how to work the adjustment. I don't even know how to keep it on my foot or whatever you call it. I meant to take them back just to ask them a question about how do you work this. So on the other hand, too, to knowing about is like between a pair of shoes and that maybe with the t-shirt or anything like that, anything that you buy, that more likely they could probably think about that yeah, how much time are you willing to spend on this? Because more likely they could probably suggest that if you're not going to be willing to at least spend enough time on it, to with the fact about yep, you cannot read off the serial number. If you cannot provide us with the serial number, then that more likely that best to know is you want to find out what that is, because we can't help you any further. But on the other hand, too, the way I suggest is that knowing about is like that from whenever I was growing up, of course, that a lot of the computers that they had at the computer lab, especially at the school, that a lot of times, but people I think about, it's like whenever I used to get on them, that a lot of times that you're thinking about is that yeah, compared to a sewing machine. A sewing machine was a little bit more fun, but just knowing about with computers, that I wanted a computer since I was a kid, never got one, and then by the time I finally got one, it was like it was like what you call, it's like, I don't know if you call it, it's like the golden present or anything like that, but just knowing about that really, that besides TVs and VCRs, it is, and calculators, it is just knowing about how to work the controls, and then knowing about how to work the mouse settings right here. Down here is with the mouse control right here, and a lot of people probably thinking about that. Yeah, just like buying a toolkit. If you were to buy a toolkit, is knowing about with the wrenches, and then of course knowing about, okay, what is this called? What is that called? What does it do or anything? And I bought a toolkit a while back, and just knowing about, I had not used all the tools yet, but knowing about it comes with these different heads and stuff like that, and just knowing about that, that buy a toolkit, and the next thing you know, they say it's for the car, but I'm like, okay, well, where does it fit? I'm like, well, what is this called? What is that called? It's like, oh, that's called a wrench, or that's called a filler feeder, or something like that. But anyway, that knowing about the tools, and of course with the equipment, it is just knowing about the fact about whenever you buy something, and just knowing about being aware of about the firewall, is that knowing about the best thing to have the firewall if you were to be on the networking sharing, and then of course is that if you were to be sharing, if you were to be connected to other networkings, and knowing about that is that the thing is that knowing about is to be extra cautious, is knowing about you get connected to the network, and just making sure that you have a internet security, and more likely they could probably think about that. Yeah, does it feel kind of like the computer's been poisoned whenever it downloads a virus? A lot of times, if you had to download an update off the computer, a lot of times it's like probably thinking about, really, are you going to blame the internet? Are you going to blame the update status? It's like talking about, it's like there's an important update that you had to install, and then the next thing you know, by the time you install it, it's like you got a virus. You got a virus. But other than that, it's like talking about, it's like it go until you want to go dang, like, and shut up. But other than that, it's like talking about, it's like, I think, like, be quiet, man. I am. But other than that, it's talking about, it's like what they say with the firewall studies. It's talk about with the parental control, and just knowing about the fact about how long it takes, just to get it working. But on the other hand, too, the way I think about it is like, yeah, that maybe allowing you to have more control over what you for your dues, it is, and just the way I think about it is like, so far as saying, for good experience, and knowing about that the types of things that we can learn based on computers, it is, and just knowing about, really, do we have more access to what we can learn than what we did back then or whatever? And a lot of times they say that all depends, but knowing about the fact about, yeah, so far as learning about new things. But other than that, is talk about with the firewall studies.